The village of Ikunza buzzed with excitement as the eclipse approached. Families gathered in the village square, exchanging stories of the past and speculating on the wonders the event would bring. Old tales were shared, speaking of great changes, and mysteries tied to the sun's darkened face. The air was thick with anticipation. "I can feel it in my bones," an old woman said, her eyes sparkling. "The eclipse comes only once in 100 years. Something great is coming." Young Ikenna stood apart from the crowd, his eyes trained on the sky. He could see the sun beginning to dim, casting shadows over the village. His heart raced, but his grandmother's warning echoed in his mind. "Remember the old ways, Ikenna. Respect the eclipse and its power. Do not be careless." He nodded to himself, trying to quiet the unease in his chest. What would the eclipse bring? His fingers twitched, and he glanced again at the sky, his excitement mixed with nervousness. The sky darkened, and a strange stillness fell over the land. The birds stopped singing, the wind stopped blowing, the very air seemed to hold its breath. Then, without warning, the villagers began to fall asleep. Ikenna turned quickly, calling out, "Grandmother!" His voice was sharp, but it didn't reach her. He ran to her side, shaking her gently at first, then more urgently. Her body was still, her eyes closed. All around him, others were the same. The village, once alive with chatter and laughter, was now silent, with everyone lying motionless in the street. Panic surged within him, but he tried to steady his breath. "What is happening?" he whispered, his voice trembling. The village was quiet, too quiet. His grandmother, whom he had always trusted to have the answers, lay still, as if lost in an endless sleep. The unease turned to fear. He called to her again, shaking her, but there was no response. He moved from one sleeping villager to the next, trying desperately to wake them. Each attempt failed. His heart pounded in his chest as his calls echoed in the empty village. The eclipse passed. The light returned to the sky, but the village remained frozen in time. The air, once heavy and still, began to feel colder. The village, peaceful and quiet, lay abandoned by its own people. Not a single villager stirred, and there was no sign of life. Frustrated, Ikenna ran from door to door, knocking and shouting. No one responded. He called for help, but there was only silence. The village had been taken by some strange force, and it was now deserted, except for him. He stopped at the center of the village, his mind racing. Something was terribly wrong. Everyone was asleep, yet nothing seemed to have caused it. Not even the elders had been spared. No one had been left awake. His chest tightened with the weight of the situation. How could it be? How had this happened? Fear gave way to determination. Ikenna clenched his fists and set his jaw. He could not leave the village in this state. He could not let his grandmother or anyone else remain trapped like this. He had to find out what caused this strange sleep and how to wake everyone up. "There must be a reason," he muttered to himself. "I will find it. I will break the curse." Without waiting for anyone else to wake, Ikenna turned and set his course. He had heard stories from the elders, legends passed down for generations, about an ancient shrine hidden deep in the village's heart. They said the shrine held the secrets to many things, including strange events like this. Maybe there was an answer there. Maybe it was the key to breaking this curse. His resolve hardened with each step. He had no one to turn to for help, no one to guide him. He was on his own. But he was determined, and his courage was like a fire, burning in his chest. He had to act quickly before it was too late. As he walked through the village, the streets were empty. Not a soul was stirring. Ikenna glanced at the sun, which was now fully shining, but the village, as if caught in another time, remained trapped under the spell of sleep. He pressed on, every step leading him closer to the shrine and closer to the answers he needed. "Please," he whispered to the wind, "help me find the way." And so, he moved forward. He did not know if he would succeed, but he would not stop until he had done everything he could to wake his village and free it from the curse. Ikenna's first step into the unknown was filled with both fear and purpose. He was ready to uncover the truth, and to face whatever came next. Ikenna sat quietly beside his grandmother, watching as she carefully ground herbs in a stone mortar. The smell of the mixture filled the air. His grandmother, a healer of great renown, had taught him the old ways, the secrets of plants and remedies, passed down through generations. She spoke little, but Ikenna had learned much from the way she worked. Each movement was deliberate, each step measured. He knew that these traditions, these ancient teachings, were the strength of his village. "Your hands must be steady, Ikenna," his grandmother often told him. "The earth speaks in whispers, and we must listen." Today, though, his mind was not focused on herbs. His thoughts wandered to the elders, gathered in secret just beyond the walls of their home. He had overheard their voices, low, urgent. They spoke of a curse tied to the eclipse that was approaching, whispers of an ancient curse that could send the entire village into an endless sleep. His curiosity grew with each passing moment. "I heard the elders talking," Ikenna said, his voice barely a whisper. "They spoke of a curse, one tied to the eclipse. Could it be true?" His grandmother didn't respond immediately. Her hands moved with practiced ease, but her eyes flickered toward him. She placed the herbs aside, turning to face him with a gentle, steady gaze. "There are many stories, Ikenna. Some are true, others are warnings. But not everything we hear is meant to be feared." But something about the tone of the elders' words gnawed at him. He knew that what they spoke of wasn't just a story. Something was coming. The village had prepared for the eclipse as if it were a festival, though no one spoke much of the curse. But as the day drew near, Ikenna could feel the weight in the air. The village was quieter than usual. Something heavy hung between them all. He watched the elders laugh off the ancient warning with knowing smiles, dismissing it as nothing more than superstition. "An old tale, nothing more," one of them had said. "The eclipse will pass like all the others." But deep inside, Ikenna felt it. Something wasn't right. He couldn't shake the feeling that this time, the village would not simply wake from its slumber. The eclipse came, as foretold. But as the moon began to cover the sun, the village fell eerily still. No one spoke. No one moved. It was as if the world itself had stopped turning. Ikenna's heart beat faster as he watched his grandmother slowly sink into sleep beside him. He shook her gently, calling her name over and over. No answer. His voice echoed into the silent air, but the village remained frozen in a deep, unshakable sleep. He checked the other villagers, running from one home to the next. Each time, he found the same. People lying still, eyes closed, breathing softly, yet completely unaware of the world around them. His cries only seemed to make the silence heavier, the stillness unbearable. The sun's light returned as the eclipse passed, but it was like the village had been forgotten by time. The air was thick, but there was no sign of life. Ikenna rushed from house to house, trying to wake anyone. Yet, it was as if the entire village had been abandoned by the gods themselves. Frustration gripped him, and fear set his heart racing. What had happened? Why were they all asleep? "There must be a reason," he whispered, his voice breaking the silence. "There must be a way to wake them." Realizing he couldn't do this alone, Ikenna made a decision. He needed help. His search led him to Tenny, a curious girl who always asked questions, always wondered why things were the way they were. Her sharp mind was as quick as her feet, and Ikenna knew she would understand. Together, they could find the answer. He found Kofi too, a quiet but strong boy who never spoke much but watched everything carefully. He trusted Kofi's quiet strength. With the three of them, maybe they could solve this. "I think the curse is real," Tenny said, her eyes wide with concern. "We need to find a way to break it." Kofi frowned. "What if we're wrong? What if we make things worse?" Ikenna's resolve was firm. "We have to try, Kofi. We can't leave them like this. We have to find a way to wake everyone up." Despite Kofi's hesitation, he agreed. His loyalty to his friends outweighed his doubts. Together, they set their sights on the village shrine, the place where the answers might lie. Ikenna felt the pull of the past, the weight of the stories and the old legends. He knew the shrine held secrets, and perhaps, just maybe, the key to undoing the curse. The journey wasn't easy. Every step felt like the village was growing heavier, as though the curse was following them. Yet they pressed on, fueled by the urgency of their task. No time to wait, no time to wonder. They had to act. Ikenna could feel his heart racing with each step, but it was the kind of fear that fueled him. It was the fear of losing his village, of losing everything. There was no turning back now. He had made his decision. They had to reach the shrine. They had to find the truth. With each step toward the shrine, their determination grew. The village had been left behind, but they would not stop. They would not give up. "We'll find a way," Ikenna whispered to himself. "I know we will." The village lay silent, its usual hum of activity replaced by a heavy, unsettling stillness. Ikenna, Tenny, and Kofi walked cautiously through the streets, their footsteps echoing in the emptiness. The village had always been lively, but now it was as if the life had been sucked out of it. The villagers lay motionless, caught in a deep, mysterious sleep, their bodies scattered across the village like fallen leaves. "We have to find out what happened," Ikenna said, his voice sharp with determination. The weight of the silence pressed on him, making his heart race. His eyes darted around, searching for any clue, any sign of what could have caused this strange curse. "I don't like this," Kofi muttered, his eyes narrowing. He felt the tension in the air, thick with unease. "It's too quiet. Something isn't right." "I agree," Tenny said, her voice firm. "But we need to move fast. We can't just wait here. We need answers." At the edge of the village, they saw him. Adebayo, the village outcast, the strange elder who lived on the outskirts of Akunza. His wild hair and ragged clothes made him look even more out of place. The villagers feared him, and many whispered that he knew things that no one should know. Adebayo stood there, staring at them from a distance. His eyes were deep and unblinking, as though he had seen the world's secrets and carried them in his soul. "We need to speak with him," Ikenna said, his voice barely above a whisper. "He knows things." The children approached, unsure of what to expect, but the moment they got closer, Adebayo spoke. "The eclipse has come," he said, his voice grave and heavy with knowledge. "It is not just an event. It is tied to a great and powerful force. The sun god Oloran holds the balance of life in his hands. Disturb that balance and there will be consequences." Tenny listened intently, her curiosity sparking. "What do you mean? What will happen?" Adebayo's eyes darkened. "If the curse is not broken, the village will fall into an eternal sleep. No one will wake again. Oloran will punish those who disturb the balance." Ikenna felt a shiver run down his spine. "But how can we fix it? What can we do?" "Find the cause," Adebayo said. "The eclipse is a sign. Your ancestors made a promise and it was broken. Now, the gods demand repayment. It is too late to stop it unless you undo." "The damage," Tenny's eyes widened. "A promise? What do you mean? How do we undo it?" Adebayo's expression hardened. "You must find the truth. Seek the shrine. The spirits there will guide you." Kofi stepped forward, skeptical. "How do we know you're telling the truth? This sounds like some old superstition." Adebayo's stern gaze cut through Kofi's doubt. "The truth is not always easy to accept, but it is real. If you ignore it, you may never wake the village. The curse will take everything." The air seemed to grow colder as Adebayo's warning sank in. Ikenna stood frozen, his mind racing. How could something so old still hold such power? Was there really a curse? Could they save the village? "We need to go to the shrine," Tenny said, her voice steady. "The spirits can help us." Kofi shook, his head, his arms crossed. "We don't need to rely on spirits. We need facts. We need something real, not these legends." The tension between them grew. Ikenna glanced at Tenny, then at Kofi, trying to understand both sides. Tenny may be right. The spirits might hold the key to this. But Kofi's right too. We need to find a way to break the curse. I think both paths lead to the truth. Tenny and Kofi continued to argue, their voices rising. The spirits will show us the way, Tenny insisted. No, we need to think logically, Kofi snapped. The legends are just stories. We need real answers. Ikenna felt the divide growing between them, but he knew they had no choice but to move forward. They couldn't stand still. We'll go to the shrine, he said firmly. We need to investigate every possibility. The village is counting on us. Suddenly, a shadow flickered at the edge of their vision. The children turned. A figure stood in the distance, watching them. The figure was too far to make out clearly, but its presence sent a chill through Ikenna's bones. The feeling of being watched was unsettling, like the figure knew something they didn't. Who is that? Tenny whispered, her voice trembling. I don't know, Ikenna said, his resolve hardening. But we can't let fear stop us now. We need to solve this, now. The shadowy figure didn't approach. It remained distant, silent, as though studying them. The children felt the weight of its gaze, but they didn't stop. They couldn't afford to. The mystery of the eclipse and the curse was too important to ignore. We move forward, Ikenna said, his voice unwavering. No more waiting. We're going to the shrine. We'll find the answers there. Despite their differences, the children pressed on. Their arguments had only fueled their determination to uncover the truth. With each step, the tension between them grew, but so did their sense of purpose. The figure remained in the distance, watching them, but it did not draw closer. It haunted their thoughts, but the children had made up their minds. They were going to solve this mystery, no matter what. As they moved toward the shrine, the silence of the village pressed in on them. Every step they took felt like it was leading them deeper into a place they couldn't turn back from. But Ikenna, Tenny, and Kofi knew they had to face the unknown. The village needed them. The curse needed to be broken. The shadow still lingered in the background, but the children's resolve was unshaken. Together, they walked on, determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. The children stepped cautiously toward the ruined shrine. The once proud structure now lay in disarray, its walls crumbled and vines creeping over its surface like the fingers of time itself. The air was thick with the weight of history. Ikenna felt it deeply, the knowledge that the answers they sought might be hidden within the ruins. His heart beat faster, each step feeling like a journey into the past. This is it, he whispered, his voice full of both fear and hope. The answers are here. They moved deeper into the shrine, eyes scanning every corner for anything that could help. The air was heavy with the silence of forgotten secrets. It was Tenny's sharp eyes that first caught the glint of something beneath the rubble. Ikenna, over here, she called, pointing toward the pile of stone and dust. Ikenna's heart skipped. He hurried over, brushing away the debris with frantic hands. There, beneath the dust, was a stone tablet, its surface carved with strange markings, old symbols, foreign to his eyes but full of meaning. His fingers traced the edges as he carefully lifted it free. This is what we've been looking for, Ikenna said, his voice reverberating with excitement. This tablet, it holds the key. Tenny, eager to understand, began to read aloud, from the inscription. Her voice echoed through the shrine, carrying the weight of a story long buried. The village betrayed the gods during a past eclipse. The promise was broken, and the sun god Olorun placed the curse upon the land. Eternal sleep will follow unless the oath is restored. Ikenna's breath caught in his throat. He understood now. It's happening again, he said, the realization dawning. The eclipse. It triggered the curse. His mind raced. The betrayal from the past wasn't just a story. It was real, and it had ties to someone in the village. It was as if the gods were still angry, still waiting for the village to make things right. A dark figure stepped forward, its shadow looming larger as it approached. The children froze, their hearts pounding. The figure's voice was deep and commanding, filling the shrine with an otherworldly power. You have awakened me, the figure said, its voice like thunder. The children's eyes widened in fear as the figure took shape before them, revealing itself to be the messenger of Olorun, the spirit of the betrayed god. The betrayal cannot be forgotten. Ikenna stepped forward, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at him. What do you mean? What can we do to fix this? The spirit's eyes glowed with a fierce intensity. The villagers' ancestors dishonored the gods. Now, the village must pay. The betrayal must be atoned for. The sleep will last until the promise is restored, or the village will be lost forever. The weight of the spirit's words pressed down on them. Tenny's gaze met Ikenna's, her voice trembling with urgency. What can we do? How can we restore the balance? The spirit's answer was clear and simple. Only the lost artifact, the necklace, can break the curse. It was used to seal the broken oath. Without it, the village will remain asleep forever. Kofi, who had been silent until now, stepped back, his arms crossed. He felt uneasy. What if we can't find it? He asked, his voice filled with doubt. What if the necklace is lost forever? His reluctance was evident. The pressure of the situation made him uneasy, his mind racing with worry. But Ikenna and Tenny were undeterred. The path ahead was clear, and they had to act quickly. They couldn't let the village stay trapped in eternal sleep. Suddenly, Kofi spoke again, but this time, his voice was quieter, filled with a secret he had kept hidden. I knew about the necklace, he confessed, his words heavy with shame. My family was part of the betrayal. They have kept it hidden. That's why they still hold power over the village. Ikenna and Tenny exchanged a glance, shock washing over them. What? Ikenna said, his voice filled with disbelief. You knew? Kofi nodded, his gaze dropping to the ground. I never wanted you to know. It's because of my family's guilt. They believed it was better if the curse stayed. The truth hit like a hammer. Kofi had been keeping them in the dark, allowing the village to remain trapped. His family's influence over the village had kept the curse alive, and now Kofi had been working to ensure it continued. Kofi's voice shook as he tried to explain. If the village stays asleep, there will be no more suffering, no more pain. The village doesn't deserve to wake up. It's better this way. Ikenna's heart pounded with anger and betrayal. How could you? He demanded, stepping closer to Kofi. How could you let us all stay trapped like this? The tension between them boiled over, Kofi's defense clashing with Ikenna's fury. You don't understand, Kofi insisted. It's for the greater good. It's for the village. If they wake up, it will only bring more pain. Ikenna's face hardened with resolve. No, he said, his voice firm. The village deserves to wake. We're not going to let the curse win. Tenny, who had been silent, spoke up. We have to break the curse, Kofi. We can't let fear and guilt decide the fate of our people. Kofi's eyes flickered with doubt, but he knew deep down that Ikenna and Tenny were right. The truth was clear. The village had suffered long enough, and it was time to break the curse. Ikenna turned toward the shrine, his resolve unshaken. We're doing this together, Kofi, he said, his voice steady. The village deserves to wake. We will find the necklace, and we will break the curse. The decision had been made. The children, despite their differences, stood united in their mission. They would find the necklace, restore the balance, and save their village. The journey was far from over. The shadow of the spirit still lingered, and the weight of their task pressed on their shoulders. But with each step, they moved closer to the truth, closer to the end of the curse. The village's fate rested in their hands. The truth hung heavy in the air as Kofi stood before the others, his face drawn with guilt. He swallowed hard, his hands trembling. I never wanted this to happen, he confessed, his voice shaking. My family's guilt over the betrayal is why I kept the secret. I thought the curse should stay. Ikenna and Tenny stared at him, their eyes wide with shock and confusion. The weight of Kofi's admission pressed down on them. How could he have kept this from them? How could he have let the village suffer, trapped in sleep, for so long? We can't let the village sleep forever, Ikenna said firmly, stepping toward Kofi. His voice was full of resolve. "We need to find the necklace and break the curse. No more waiting. No more hiding." Tenny's gaze softened, her eyes steady with determination. "The village deserves to wake, no matter what," she said, her voice unwavering. Kofi nodded slowly, realizing that the decision had already been made. The truth was out, and now there was no turning back. They had to act. With no time to lose, the children rushed into action. They moved through the village with urgency, their hearts pounding as they searched for the lost artifact. They raced past the ruins, scanning every corner, every stone, their eyes sharp. "It has to be here," Tenny whispered, her voice tight with pressure. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows as the task before them grew heavier. Time was running out. The curse was fading, but not fast enough. Ikenna's eyes caught something glinting in the dirt beneath an old tree. He ran over, his heart leaping. He dug through the soil, hands shaking as they brushed away the earth. There, buried beneath the ground, was the necklace, the long-lost artifact. "We found it," Ikenna shouted, relief flooding through. Him. The necklace was old and worn, but its power was undeniable. The curse could be broken. They could save their village. Without wasting another moment, they set off toward the shrine, the weight of their mission pressing heavily on their shoulders. "We have to make it," Ikenna urged, the fear and determination clear in his voice. They ran through the village streets, the urgency of their mission pushing them faster. The shrine was in sight, but so was the spirit, waiting for them with its ominous presence. The children reached the shrine, breathless, hearts racing. Ikenna held the necklace high and placed it into the spirit's waiting hands. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the earth. The curse began to lift. The ground trembled lightly, and a soft glow enveloped the shrine, filling the air with a strange, peaceful energy. The village had begun to stir. At first, the awakening was slow, as if the villagers were unsure of what was happening. Eyes opened, and confused voices whispered in the quiet. Ikenna's heart swelled with relief as he watched the villagers begin to wake from their long, unnatural sleep. The first to awaken were Ikenna's parents, their eyes blinking in the light. "Mother! Father!" Tenny called, rushing to their side. Her voice broke the stillness, and a wave of gratitude washed over her. "What is this? What's happened to us?" an elder asked, confusion evident in his voice. The villagers were disoriented, unsure of the passing time, but one thing was clear. They were alive. They were awake, and the curse had been broken. The elders, who had once dismissed the curse as an old tale, now bowed their heads in respect to the children who had saved the village. "You have saved us all," one elder said, his voice full of awe. "Your courage has broken the curse." The children stood tall, their faces filled with pride. They had done it. They had saved their village. With the curse lifted, a new peace settled over Ikunza. The villagers gathered together, their voices filled with thanks and promises to rebuild. One elder stood up, his voice strong as he addressed the crowd. "We were wrong," he admitted. "We ignored the lessons of the past, and now we see the cost of our ignorance. From this day forward, we will respect the gods and their promises. Our village will be safe again." Ikenna, Tenny, and Kofi stood side by side, looking out at the village. The sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of gold and red. The village, once trapped in sleep, was now alive again. "We did it," Kofi said quietly, his voice filled with gratitude. Ikenna and Tenny nodded. They had changed their village forever. They had learned the power of the past, the cost of betrayal, and the importance of standing up for what was right. "Will they never forget what we learned?" Ikenna said, his voice firm. The children walked away from the shrine, knowing their actions would be remembered. The village of Ikunza was safe once more, but the lesson of the past would echo through the future. The children had saved their village, but they had also set an example for the generations to come. With courage in their hearts and hope for the future, Ikenna, Tenny, and Kofi walked together, ready for whatever came next. The legacy of their actions would live on, and the village would never forget the price of breaking promises. or the power of standing together. The villagers gathered around, their eyes wide with disbelief. They stared at the children who had broken the curse and saved them all. A hush fell over the crowd as an elder stepped forward, his voice filled with admiration. "You did it," he said. "You broke the curse and saved us all." The children stood tall, their hearts filled with a mix of relief and pride. They had done the impossible. The weight of their actions hung in the air, and the villagers could feel the change. Heroes. That was what they were now called. The elders. Two sat in a circle, their faces solemn as they reflected on the past. "Our past actions are not just stories," one elder said, his voice slow and measured. "They shape our future. Just as your bravery has changed the fate of this village, so too have the mistakes of our ancestors shaped the curse." The village fell, silent, each person listening intently. The elder's words struck deep. The truth of the past, the betrayal, and the consequences echoed through the air. The curse had been a result of ancient wrongs, and now the village would have to learn to honor their promises or risk repeating history. "Betrayal is never forgotten," another elder added, his voice heavy with wisdom. "It ripples through generations, hurting those who come after." His words landed like a stone thrown into still water, spreading outward with each syllable. The villagers knew now that they could not ignore the past. They had to acknowledge it and learn from it. Ikenna stood, apart from the group, his mind replaying the journey he had just taken. "We didn't give up," he said, his voice strong, though his heart still raced with the memory of their struggles. "Even when it seemed impossible, we kept going. We knew we had to save everyone." His journey had taught him something important, that courage was not about being without fear, but about acting despite it. Tenny smiled as she looked at her friends. "We worked together," she said. "Without each other, we couldn't have done it." Her words were simple but carried a deep truth. The strength of their unity had been the key to their success. The village saw that, and the people nodded, in agreement, understanding the power of friendship. Kofi, who had struggled with doubt and fear, now stood before the village, his voice quieter than it had ever been. "I thought it was better to let the village stay asleep," he admitted. "But I was wrong. The right thing to do is always the hardest, but it's the only way forward." A heavy silence followed his words, and Kofi felt the weight of his realization. He had learned the importance of standing up for what was right, no matter the cost. One elder rose from the circle and spoke wisely. "The past cannot be changed," he said, "but we can shape our future by learning from it. Forgiveness is key, but so is progress." His words brought peace to the village. They understood that, though they could not undo what had been done, they could move forward together, stronger and wiser. As the sun began to set over Ikunza, the villagers gathered for a feast. Laughter filled the air, and songs of joy echoed through the streets. One elder stood, raising his hands to the sky. "We are stronger now," he proclaimed. "We've learned from our past, and now we walk together into a better future." Ikenna, Tenny, and Kofi stood together, watching the celebration. Their hearts were full, but they knew the work was far from over. They had saved the village, but the lessons learned would shape their future. "We saved the village, but we still have much to learn," Ikenna said thoughtfully. His words rang true. The journey had changed them all, but it was only the beginning. There was more to be done, more to understand, and more to protect. Tenny's eyes sparkled with hope. "Together, we'll protect this village," she said, her voice steady and full of promise. "We're ready for the future, as long as we remember the past." The village came together, united in their newfound respect for the old ways. The elders shared their wisdom with the younger generation, teaching them the importance of respect for the gods and the promises that must never be broken. "The past teaches us lessons," one elder said firmly, "but we must not let it hold us back." Ikenna, Tenny, and Kofi walked toward the horizon, the weight of their journey heavy on their shoulders, but their hearts light with hope. They had saved their home, but they now understood that the real work was in shaping a future built on courage, unity, and respect for the past. As they walked, they knew their actions would echo through the village for generations to come. They had restored the balance, lifted the curse, and protected Ikunza from the shadows of the past. The village was safe again, but the legacy of their actions would never fade. The children looked ahead, ready for whatever came next. The future was open to them, and they would walk into it, united, knowing that the strength of their bond would guide them through whatever challenges lay ahead.